This is a short presentation of read.com app version 0.0.18. This is a pre-release version. read.com app name is pending yet. Is an application for creating stories, interactive stories that are created from story items that can be nested canvas that is zoomable. So we can make a new story with this button, load an existing story from a .readcom document. We can save our story to overwrite a previous file or to keep a version of that story with a different file name. We can enter edit mode to edit the active story item. We can open the structure view, which in edit mode stays open, and modify the scene. We can move items to another parent, another story point, and we can also add them to the same parent to reorder them in the Z order, which is also done by double clicking on an item to bring to 4 or back. You may need to double or triple click to do it. During edit mode there is a sidebar on the right that affects the active story item. And when we delete something, the selection, the active item becomes its parent. For example, if we remove this one, becomes its parent. If we remove this one, this is selected. When we exit the application, it saves in temporary folder the current state so that you can continue from where you had left. But note that the original document you had loaded is not touched, it's not overwritten. So if you want to keep your changes, you need to save and select to override the document. Or you can save with another name if you want to keep different file names for each version of your story. An idea, for example, is that you can start with a document, create the finished story, and then go back and start removing the more complex parts. For example, here we would remove the dialogues and save a second step of the story. The third step would be the final story here, and then we would remove the actors, and removing the actors will create the simplest form of the story and save it as a first step. Note that when we are we're not in edit mode, we see in the sidebar only the story points. The story point is defined by right clicking on a story item and clicking on the story point button. We can have a home story point. There's only one in the whole story, which is the page where we are taken, the story item where we're taken when the story is loaded. And we can have various story points even nested inside other story points. And we can add the story items to the current active story item. Can even do multiple selection, CTRL click, or drag to select an area depending on what the operating system offers. So here we can start moving around items, resizing them. When we do a selection, we pick the top story item, and we can double click it to select some other one. Because the selection always selects the topmost story item. When we are in edit mode, we can flip an item, we can copy it. For example, if we delete it, we're taken to the parent and we can paste it. You see, it drags with it all its children. Though it behaves a bit wrong here, it should have its children more inside the parent item. As I said, this is a preview version 0.0.18, so there are still bugs. For example, when an item has been flipped, sometimes the selector doesn't work. So it doesn't zoom to the correct place. To zoom in, you can use the CTRL and the mouse wheel. You can move items around in the tree. You can have an automated timer that progresses the story if you want to see how it proceeds. You can stop the timer when you wish. You can select an area and add the text story item there. You can add an image bitmap image placeholder. This one allows you, when you select it, to change its image or paste another image. Some functionality that is still pending is addition of targets. The concept of targets is that you will be able to have drag and arrow from an item to another item directly, and when that target item is a story point, it will be a transition that occurs when you click the item that links to that story point. So you could have interactive navigation in the story by the user by picking choices, and also you could make drills where to proceed to the next story point. The user will have to move items to their targets, for example to group items into a target. There is a help button that takes you to the wiki pages of this project, of the application specific. There is functionality there for submitting bug reports or issues that are feedback, suggestions for example. You only have to create a free GitHub account in order to be able to send feedback. And there is an about dialog that needs some work still. It even has an older version number, so you can ignore it for now. There are actions. For example, you could put a URL here so that when this item is clicked, this rabbit here, it will open the URL you had selected in the browser. Okay, this could also occur for the background of this background. Clicking it would go to a URL if we wish. This is another interactive feature. For example, if you want to correlate some videos to parts of the story, you could make some actors take you to some videos or to some information. For example, clicking on the turtle could take you to Wikipedia and see info about the turtles. As I said before, when we are not in edit mode, the structure view closes. Only the story points are shown there. Note that we can define a story item as home. There is only one home, and this is the place we are taking when the story loads. Child items of the active story item in edit mode can be selected and resized or moved around. And also audio story items can be added if we go to the active item. Here, for example, in the story, we could add some audio, and when we navigate to this story point, the audio would play. Actually, it should play randomly one of the child audio story items, but this feature is still under work. Note that when we move an item, it moves its children with it. And to add the text story item, for example here, we could delete this graphic and define an area in here by dragging, and then add a text story item in that area. Note that we have to close the structure view now. This will be changed in the future to see what we added. here we can type in, and with Ctrl and the mouse wheel we can zoom out. With just the mouse wheel we scroll around, and here we have our actor speaking, and still this move around. Note that the items on the right, copy, paste, delete, work on the active story item and not on the children. For example, if we press delete here, we'll delete this. But if we press here, we'll delete the rabbit. So this is it for now. Thank you.